Good afternoon, members of parliament, support staff, no visitors in the Tribune this afternoon, radio listeners, TV viewers, and media, those of the members of the media. Welcome to this meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee Electoral Reform, number 5 of today, Monday, September 5th, 2022. I would like to give a warm welcome to the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Ms. Silvera Jacobs. We've established a quorum of 7 members and 2 visiting MPs. Please let's stand for a moment of silence. I have not received any notices of lateness or absence. Is there any member of parliament that wish to have the floor for notifications before we proceed? I see no need. We have as agenda point for today's meeting discussion with the Prime Minister regarding plans for electoral reform. This can be found under incoming document number 1200, Parliamentary Year 2021-2022, dated August 17, 2022. On August 17, 2022, the Committee of Electoral Reform of Parliament received a letter from the Prime Minister informing Parliament that she will be hosting several town halls and symposiums on electoral reform in the coming weeks. And it would be remiss of her to not to have involved and engaged the committee on this said topic, as the very institutionalization of the committee was for this purpose. The Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Ms. Silvera Jacobs, also stated in her letter request that the objective is to obtain advice, guidance on the issues and possible solutions regarding reform. The Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silvera Jacobs, as well inquired if the chairlady of the committee would be able to provide the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs with a 10-minute presentation on electoral reform. Hence this meeting today. Before I give the floor over to the Prime Minister and the members of the committee, I would like to mention the following correspondences from the government to Parliament since 2016. First, on January 12, 2016, Parliament received a ministerial decree, an LB, a national decree of December 14, 2015, that a commission would be installed in 2 weeks. The commission would have experts who would study and bring a proposal to avoid ship jumping. The names of the commission members were also mentioned in the LB of 2015. The date of the commission to deliver their definite advice was set for March 2016. This can be found under the P drive incoming document 416, Parliamentary Year 2015 to 2016, January 12, 2016. On April 23, 2019, the Parliament of St. Martin, the President of Parliament of St. Martin, then Mrs. Sarah Westcott Williams, sent a letter to the then Prime Minister informing her through the media that Parliament was made aware of the fact that the government recently established a committee to do research and investigate the matter of electoral reform to make proposals for law amendments. The then Chairlady of Parliament requested that Parliament be provided with a copy of the LB in which this committee was established. The President of Parliament requested the government to meet with the Ad Hoc Committee on Electoral Reform, which was established on August 27, 2018. In this meeting, the government and the Ad Hoc Committee would exchange ideas which can be fruitful in meeting the common goal, which is to reform the electoral system of St. Martin by means of amendments to the Constitution, electoral ordinance, and other relevant legislation. This can be found under UV 21282, Parliamentary Year 2018-2019, April 23, 2019. The response to the letter above mentioned from Parliament came on May 8, 2019. The government informed Parliament that the information in the media was incorrect. The government had not established a committee. The government mentioned that it had installed a work group to advise and prepare the necessary documents to install a committee that will have the task of doing research, investigating our laws, and regulations concerning elections. The government informed Parliament that there was no national decree. The work group was instructed to first meet with the ad hoc committee on electoral reform of Parliament. Once installed, the committee will have the task of exchanging ideas and making arrangements to work together with the ad hoc committee of Parliament. Lastly, I would like to inform the government that Parliament's Committee on Electoral Reform has not sat still over the years. We have had several meetings to discuss electoral reform. The Committee of Electoral Reform of Parliament has also created a term of reference to be publicized. The term of reference was amended to add a few additional articles in our last meeting on June 2022. I'd like to make reference to a letter that was sent to the Prime Minister regarding what we will be looking forward to in the tour. I stated in the letter, in the latter part of the letter, that during this meeting, the sub-items were discussed. This committee decided to pay keen attention to the Electoral Reform, which is the Constitution and Election Ordinance, political parties, which is the Constitution, the financing and registration of political parties and election ordinance, Parliament in general, which is the Constitution and Electoral Ordinance, membership under Constitution and Electoral Ordinance, and screening laws of ministers. And it also stated that in order to ensure the desired outcomes, I suggest that the Council of Ministers and Parliament collaborate on this process henceforth. So prior to having this dialogue between the executive and the legislative branches, I am hereby requesting you to provide Parliament with an overview of the multi-pronged campaign you mentioned, as well as all other relevant information about the process you have embarked on with regard to electoral reform. So with that said, members of Parliament, at this time, I would like to give the floor to the Prime Minister and the request of this meeting to elucidate on the update. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon once again to you, honorable MPs, the Secretary General, my support staff, the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, on the eve of remembering Hurricane Irma, I would like to say the following. Having faced one of the worst hurricanes in recorded history, dealing with the aftermath that can still be felt today, and the ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic, and now the high inflation and cost of living that seeks to diminish and or destroy our quality of life, I must say that the last few years have not been easy. Our resilience, I take note of the historical facts has been presented by you, Madam Chair, and thank you for elucidating such, both on the government side as well as on Parliament side. Of course, I would have to, double check within the ministry's archives and etc. as to everything that has been put forth by you that has been presented on government side. I do also know for a fact that it was in 2016. Yeah. I don't recall that being mentioned. August of 2016, that there was a draft that was sent on, not to Parliament, I know. That was sent on to, so let's say the legislative process was started and also had a AHCER opinion to it on a proposal on the way forward. This is August? Yeah. So this was a legislation, right?
Yeah, this is now the report.
So it went to the Council of Advice, it came back, report as a result of that was prepared as well, and that was in early August. And then the decision was taken, I think, in the council on the 23rd of August of that same year to forward it on to Parliament. Right. So I didn't hear that mentioned, so I would like to have the opportunity to ensure that the full historical review that was done since then to now can be really put on a line that we can all understand. I see a member.
Yes.
Yes, Madam
MP
Chair
Westcott
Lady,
Williams, you want point of order.
a point of order, and while I would have awaited the Prime Minister's presentation from the response to your introduction, I think it is necessary, Madam Chair Lady, with your indulgence, that I give some supplementary information to what you provided. Because, Madam Chair Lady, and what I would like us to get to as a committee of Parliament is that, as you indicated in your letter to the Prime Minister, that we could collaborate on this entire effort of electoral reform. Electoral reform is a very broad subject, and Parliament has already sort of narrowed down our priorities for electoral reform. So while I can understand, no, I can't understand the government's approach to basically start from scratch. If I understand what I saw in the media well, it is now to go into the districts and get feedback. But Parliament has taken another approach, and that is one of looking at all that we have, to which the chairperson alluded, and decided, and that decision has been taken by the committee to put forward the matters that we consider priorities. Madam Chair Lady, for the sake of the Prime Minister, if you would allow me just briefly to add some to what you indicated, to at least provide a more complete picture that the Prime Minister is alluding to, because the one that was taken out and highlighted by the Prime Minister as not having been mentioned by you, the reason being that it has come to Parliament in bits and pieces and not as a law. When asked, the Parliament received copies of the advice from the Council of Advice. And Madam Chair Lady, we're actually talking to others than just in here in the meeting. So I think it's important. What we had, the one that, in my opinion, the Prime Minister is referring to, is a proposal from the government at the time to curb ship jumping. That is what it says in the proposal. The proposal to curb ship jumping, as presented by the government at the time, was to exclude persons who leave their faction from being part of the formation of a new government. That was a proposal for law, Madam Chair Lady, to which not only the Council of Advice responded, but also the Kingdom Council of Ministers, sort of rejecting that notion. So, Madam Chair Lady, as I had asked you, if I may, so in addition, yeah, okay,
Yes, I'm
Madam
seeing
Chair
the Prime
Lady.
Minister would like to interject. I would like to maybe, sorry? One minute, MP Westcott. I know you're not, I'm going to return the word to you. MP, Prime Minister, I see you wanted to just mention something, so I'll allow you to say something.
For me, this is a working meeting of Parliament, and the intention has always been to collaborate. So I don't know if the members would understand or agree. Questions were asked via your letter, present, respond, the intentions, and then when that is done, we hear fully from the committee as to where you are, because we did request, for instance, to receive the discussion paper, and up to this morning, you mentioned that it was an internal document, etc. So that is well and good. So I would just like to clearly define before further explanations come forward from whence the government and why sought this trajectory, and then afterward, of course, it is a working meeting where out we would want to collaborate as much as possible. So then to hear where you already are at would then help us to adjust our sails, so to speak.
Okay.
So if I may.
Thank you, MP Westcott. Should we allow the, let's allow the Prime Minister
Madam
to...
Chair Lady, I didn't want to go into the discussion yet. I just wanted to add to some of what you have mentioned in your letter where Parliament is at. I don't want to go into the discussion yet. That will come after the Prime Minister, but if you allow me just to run down some of those
Not
items
a problem. Go ahead.
for the Prime Minister as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, actually this matter of electoral reform started with a motion of Parliament going back to 2013. And again, Madam Chair Lady, in that motion, the issue of ship jumping was mentioned, 2013. On the basis of that, the government at the time presented a discussion paper to Parliament. The Prime Minister in 2013 presented a discussion paper to Parliament. In 2018, the Electoral Reform Committee was established and a discussion paper prepared for this committee, as well as a tour at the time to outsource the research and drafting of relevant legislation. Madam Chair Lady, in Parliament annals, the following exist. I refer to the discussion paper of 1314. Madam Chair Lady, we also have proposals from private citizens here in Parliament. For example, the one by citizen Hula Romney back in 1314 as well. We have a proposal from citizen Williams, M. Williams, regarding changing the Constitution to expand the voters' base, 1314. We have a proposal from citizen Valia Lake for electoral reform, 1718. We have a draft initiative to amend the electoral law that came from government at the time and was retracted. We have a discussion paper by former, now suspended MP Bonkamper regarding electoral reform. We have a motion of December the 15th regarding the screening of ministers as part of electoral reform. Madam Chair Lady, in 2015-16 parliamentary year, the Parliament of St. Martin received questions from Mr. Ralph Richardson on behalf of the government's electoral committee. Government informed us by MB of 1516, numbered 416 here at Parliament, of the establishment of a government electoral reform committee. In 16-17, I'm talking years now, so 2016-2017, we received what I referred to earlier, reactions from the Council of Advice and the Kingdom Council of Ministers regarding government's proposal at the time to change the Constitution. Madam Chair Lady, I bring this forward to emphasize that what I think we need to do, and hopefully would be the outcome of this meeting, is not to go back to point zero on this matter, but really be able to move forward with the understanding that Parliament has already identified certain priorities to be outsourced. If the government could find in its legal budget to assist us with that, I think that would be perfect. We'll probably learn from the Prime Minister how the proposed campaign is going to be financed, but if our trajectory can be taken along in that context, considering the preparations that were done before we got to this point, I think then we really will be moving forward rather than basically sort of kind of reinventing the wheel somewhat. So, Madam Chair Lady, I thank you for the opportunity to add to the matters that you brought forward as having been in discussion here at Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I'd like to now turn the floor over to the Prime Minister for her presentation and opening remarks. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to you and by extension to the Member of Parliament for the further elucidation as to steps taken in Parliament and documents received, etc., which I had requested in my earlier statements that together, of course, we should ensure to compile all of what has been done, etc. I appreciate the update, as I'm sure does the public of St. Martin in that regard, and so I say thank you. Madam Chair, indeed, today's discussion is so pertinent that it leads itself to us ensuring that proper mechanisms are in place to ensure continuity of government. I think every time we've heard electoral reform mentioned is because of, especially back in the day, the situation of constantly changing governments. And so at risk of current members who know what all has been done, at the time when we took up the decision, because certain things have been done since we've been there that were required from the get-go. However, we did not, let's say, have sight of how far already Parliament was in terms of listening to the cries of the people. We felt it was necessary to, as government, also move forward. So this government and Parliament, I think, should be very much willing, and I'm hearing that willingness to collaborate to ensure that with proper legislation in place that we can indeed, and rules and regulations across the board that relate to it, that we can provide a much needed stability for our country. I think the current situation we are in requires it even more so 12 years down the road. So it has been, as has been alluded to here, a debate, a very hot debate since 2014, 13, with lots of articles and pieces being put forward. I myself have been on the other side and seen presentations by at least one or two, as has been elucidated by MP Westcott Williams, and published even by members of our own Parliament as well. So each government prior to this one saw the need for electoral reforms, but were unable to implement the necessary changes or follow through on the necessary changes due to the constant instability that was the only constant over the past years. This government, like all those others, were also charged with ensuring that the necessary reform measures to our electoral laws, national ordinances, and policies be undertaken. So the first measure that we did was allowing for the newly registered parties to be able to participate in snap elections, thereby increasing accessibility to the right to postulate oneself without the bureaucracy that once impeded or deterred prospective candidates. The second measure dealt with the financial auditing of political parties. Granted, I would be the first to acknowledge that there is still much, much more to be done to identify and address the inefficiencies within our current electoral system. And so it is for this reason that my cabinet requested a private audience with the ad hoc committee to be able to have that dialogue to see where we were, or where you were for that matter, where the committee was in regards to the necessary reforms, as well as to have sight of the discussion paper earlier mentioned, which you spoke of in your letter, Madam Chair. So it is with that spirit of synchronization and collaboration and cooperation that we are here, albeit in a public setting, to have this discussion. And we have not yet received the document. That's correct? We've not received the document. So from our perspective, it was important that we, to have the direct input of the people. A lot of time has passed since the discussions have started, and we have not had the input of the people. And something that we heard loud and clear from the populace is that a referendum is needed on this topic. And for me, referendum means that the people need to know and understand before decision-making can take place. So that was the reason we felt the need to hear and listen to what the people wanted, understand their level of understanding of the topic, act upon their wishes, ensure to provide the needed information should that be lacking, and implement the changes that they want to see. I don't know, Madam Chair, even if it would be seen as going back to ground zero. I do not, because if you're already so far, ensuring that the population knows the repercussions of the positives, the negatives, basically a SWOT type of analysis of whatever is being presented. I think that's important. And the deliverables we hope to achieve would be the three-pronged approach that was formulated. So in order to achieve this listen, act, and then change approach, we decided that the first prong would be to launch the survey. Relatively successful, probably not as many respondents as I would like, and then getting the impression that it is one section of the community in terms of what it is, majority tertiary educated persons who have responded to the survey. That indeed, to me, says something in and of itself, in that a larger and wider spectrum of the population is unaware. One, maybe don't care. Two, three, just it passed them by. It was on a digital platform. Maybe we need a more hands-on approach to get their responses. Madam Chair, from at least that research, that little survey, small sampling of about 400 persons thus far, we initiated then the second prong, which was then the planned town hall series. We would have wanted to start a week or so ago, but this meeting for us was necessary prior to doing that, understanding already what was in process, and in fact, involving you in that engagement process, ensuring, for instance, that going to at least 4 districts, I believe was the plan, that we would have members of parliament at said meetings to be able to address questions that the population would have, with the hope that they knew, as well as a couple of other invited guests, such as some that have presented papers in the past, to be part of that discussion. So that is basically what the plan was, after which we would then plan a symposium. A symposium, Madam Chair, would be then the third step, the Electoral Reform Symposium, at which you would have the technical and or legal aspect presented, and have that type of a discussion that has been going on over the past 10 years, and bring out, for instance, where you are already in the process as Parliament. So we, I would assume, based on what has been said here, are behind the actions that have been taken by Parliament. This meeting would have been needed prior to the public sessions, going to the community, having the dialogue and discourse, but with all of this information in terms of what is there to bring awareness to the population. Because while you might not have all the time to go through a whole referendum and a huge campaign for that, we felt that for those persons with interest within the population, it would have been an opportunity to hear them. And I don't think, regardless to where we are, that step should be missed at this juncture, 12 years in. I think I would like to stop there at this point, Madam Chair. That was the three-prong approach. And as a matter of fact, one thing I missed is after the symposium, to then say we have, let's say, the basis of where the legislative changes would be needed, of course, in further discourse with the members of Parliament in this electoral committee, to move towards putting to paper in a legislative sense what is then the sentiments of the people in terms of where we need to go, what we need to see, especially as key to what many have said is they do not see the current Parliament reflecting the wishes, their wishes back in 2020. So I think that is also very much key to note. So it is a concern within the community, and I look forward to us not just moving on with the plans without any further discussion with them, but to also still take them along in the discussion, of course, with your indulgence, Madam Chair, and of course the participation of the Electoral Committee and members of Parliament at large.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your presentation, your remarks. For clarity, Prime Minister, the thing is this committee has been established since I think it was 2016. And this position paper that has been worked on for the last 6 years through the representatives of the people, Parliament. And for us to hand over a position paper to government with all the work that has been done, all the information that that has been received, gathered, it's like might as well we hand it over, give you all the work that we worked on, and then you start from you take it from there. But what we're trying to establish here today, Prime Minister, is that this is where we are. We have taken now an approach. We've highlighted the top 5 laws that we want to work on. We are in the process. It has been approved in this committee to hire a law firm through a term of reference, and then with that we will start delving into the laws. Now what we want to establish there is what are you working on so that we're not doing double work, because we've already started the trajectory. So I don't know if any other member of parliament would like to weigh in and have a discussion on what is presented here today. We're asking government to actually collaborate with us moving forward on what we've already established, because we have we've compiled so much information, had so many discussions, we've received so many position papers from other people, so many requests and so many suggestions from other people in the community, and based on that, now we've already set the top 5 areas that we want to zoom on, and we've already agreed on the term of reference. We just want to establish in this committee today if we're doing double work, yes or no. I see that MP Duncan would like to have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the Prime Minister and her team. Good afternoon to my colleagues here in Parliament. And a good afternoon to the people of St. Martin tuned in. Madam Chair, through you to the Prime Minister, I hope I didn't miss this, but I wanted to know if any preliminary results could be shared, because indeed Parliament is getting ready to just put that terms of reference out so that a consultant can work on the tangible needs, which is the changes that we want to see. However, it is good. I mean, 400 respondents is a pretty good sample. You know, so for me, I'd like to know if we can see that information, because then we at least have a bigger, let's say, pulse of the people and see where that information can fit into the work that we are doing. But indeed, yes, I do understand your point of view, Madam Chair Lady, with work being done on both sides and trying to figure out how we can synchronize as best as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duncan. I see MP Westcott Williams would like to have the floor.
Yeah,
Would you like to respond to MP Duncan? MP, yes?
Yes, I was just wondering if this is a working committee meeting.
It's a discussion.
A discussion.
Yes.
How are we doing it in terms of like a normal meeting with everybody asking the questions, and then are we going back
We're
and
having a
forth?
discussion dialogue and back and forth. So just to get all the committee members' input on what we've established and where we want to move forward. So remember, you asked for the position paper earlier, and I said it is up to the committee to decide that. I cannot decide that on behalf of the committee. So let's have a discussion and decide, and based on the outcome of the discussion, we decide how we move forward.
So based on MP Duncan's
Would you like to
statement,
respond to
would I
her?
be able to say something?
Sure, you can. This is
Yes,
a
okay.
discussion, a committee meeting, so go ahead.
That's what I was checking to see how we doing it, how the modus operandi would be. Thank you. Indeed, Madam Chair, I think that for me, seeing that our plan was to come and see where you are, it's a matter of us sharing information with each other. It is not an issue at all for us to share information, but of course, as your committee would determine what information you want to share with government, I would expect that before a terms of reference goes out, that you would also have requested an audience with government, whether behind closed doors or publicly, because I guess thus far your meetings have been behind closed doors. Because as government, we were not aware that steps were being taken by Parliament in this direction. So, of course, we do not want to duplicate work. and you don't want to reinvent the wheel, but I was hoping that in coming and explaining the three-pronged approach that we were advancing on would be not to just take, documents that have been discussed or put forward in the past, but to actually pale the feelings of the people, let's say 6 years later, or that since the committee was formed. And if we go back to when the discussion started in 2013, almost 10 years ago. So are the sentiments the same? Now that people have experienced something for 12 years, do they feel the same? So for me, we are on the same page. I am very happy to know that the Electoral Committee has gotten thus far. And if then it is not something we want to have as a public discussion, if we can have that type of a discussion internally so that we can determine then the best way forward, because I think collaboratively we will get further. I don't know in how much, the challenge for us also was the getting the legislation written, but if there is something we can do to make this move faster based on our collaboration, we're all for it. So,
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'll turn the floor over to MP Westcott, and then MP Westcott, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, some comments, but my first one, I would like to state that in terms of informing the public, having these discussions between Parliament and the government on the matter of electoral reform is also a way of informing the public. So I don't see anything necessary from these meetings, whether it's considered a working meeting, exchange meeting, whatever have you, for it to be behind closed doors. So I want to state that up front. Secondly, I completely support my colleague MP Duncan's request for the information, and I would like the Prime Minister to expound the information from the survey. Let me be complete. And I would like the Prime Minister to expound a little and, if available, give that overview of the approaches and the timelines, if any, attached to the different approaches. And I say this, Madam Chair Lady, because in addition to getting that feel that the government has gotten from the responses to the survey, Madam Chair Lady, I did not see the survey, but I did see the PSA, if you wish, the video of the Prime Minister encouraging the participation in the survey. And one of the questions was something to the effect of, what do you think, how do you feel about electoral reform? For many persons, Madam Chair Lady, electoral reform is about the system, our electoral system. You hear people commenting, discussing, and deliberating on the system we have, our election system. So I am quite curious to know if the government in the survey broke it down a little in terms of electoral reform. Because while a lot of time has passed indeed, but what we have seen coming from the government, in my opinion, is also a clear indication of what the government saw as a problem. Not only inside of government, but also by the different political parties, the matter of stability. So, that issue, whether 10 years passed, 13, 20, no, that stability ain't playing an issue that long, but definitely 10, 13 years, that is an issue. We don't need, and it's out there in the public. With your ears to the ground, that is clear. So with respect to one, the survey, was it as broad as the introduction to the survey was, or was it broken down in the survey in terms of giving some indication as to the items of electoral reform? The Prime Minister alluded to having Parliament participate in the town hall settings, and I am curious as to how the Prime Minister would see this process, would see this matter, because, Madam Chair Lady, we talk about referenda, but fact is that according to me, and if not, the Prime Minister can definitely correct that, but our referendum law actually goes from the premise of the government and or Parliament making a decision and putting it to the public. So the discussion about what we want as a parliament, as a government, is definitely, in my opinion, the way that we should go in terms of having that discussion. What we want. We have already delineated the topics that we consider important, because if we leave that open, I mean, we're going to continue for the years to come about this broad name of electoral reform without pinpointing the issues at hand. And some of them are blatant, Madam Chair Lady. Some of them are blatant. The fact that we need to look at Article 33 of our Constitution and come with some explanation in terms of, not explanation, come with some stipulation regarding how Parliament controls the ministers. That is something that we don't need a debate. We have to do that, Madam Chair Lady. For this meeting, I'm not going to go into Article 59, the application of it. That's where Parliament can be dissolved, which is the counter-argument to Article 33 of our Constitution. But there are some things, Madam Chair Lady, that are obvious, that are very, very obvious. So my petition to you as Chair Lady and to the Prime Minister is, let us keep our eye on the ball in terms of the things that we know we have to address. Don't let us get sidetracked by, just talking about electoral reform as a broad issue without pinpointing some of the areas that clear from within the community, from within government, from within Parliament, we have to address. So I would like to see that collaboration coming together in that context. And all the other things we can do, but don't lose focus of what we know we need to go after. It's a pity. It's a pity to learn of the government's lack of knowledge in terms of where this committee is at currently. I know why. I can suspect why that is the case. This committee has gotten a lot of flack without consideration for the fact that we were constantly with government, what you doing? And, with those questions and stuff like that. Fact is that, as you outlined, we know where we're at this moment, and we really need to find a way to continue to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I would like to now turn the floor over to MP George Pontiflet. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again, PM, for the response and the brief presentation. Madam Chair, I'm looking at a lot of dates and so on that was given. 2013, 2015, March 2016, April 2019. And Madam Chair, there were meetings that were held by this committee in a closed session. Now, I need to know, Madam Chair, when do we determine it is closed door? When do we determine it is public? Because working meetings are supposed to be that actually working meetings where you discuss issues, get things finalized, and then you come to the public. I do not think matters such as this should be. Because to me, Madam Chair, I feel like as if it's a debate that is taking place. And it should not be a debate. It should be a discussion on how we're going to move forward. I've heard the PM more than once say the word collaborate. It means work together. But what I'm getting here sitting on right now is it's as if it's a debate. So I need to know exactly how we're going to proceed. Are we going to decide exactly what is going to be closed door working or what's going to be public, Madam Chair? Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Pontiflet. I'll respond to you shortly. I would like to give the floor then to MP Duncan. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to propose a technical meeting, because we have the ad hoc committee for electoral reform here in Parliament, and government has a committee doing work. So if we could then work together, both presenting overviews on their findings and on their proposals, I think that would move us a little bit further, just in the spirit of collaboration and working together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duncan. Next, we have MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, my next comment will not come as a surprise to you, because differently than the government, Madam Chair Lady, the premise of Parliament is public meetings. Closed doors or meetings behind closed doors should be an exception to that rule. Let me repeat, Madam Chair Lady. The premise of Parliament is public meetings. It is clear when closed door meetings can take place, how they are to be requested, and on the basis of what. But the premise, the principle of Parliament is actually openness. Here is where persons are expected to hear their representatives debate an issue. There's nothing wrong with this debate that is going on with government, Madam Chair Lady. Has anything wrongfully been said or suggested? Has anyone, you know what I'm saying? There's absolutely nothing wrong with this debate here taking place on a topic like electoral reform. We have created for special circumstances this thing about, working meetings or technical meetings, but that is a limited use of the possibility. Madam Chair Lady, what if we were to, which we are going to be doing shortly, asking you to institute things like a debate in Parliament, which according to our rules of order should be possible. In fact, we even talk about a split debate. Now, you would also know my other issue here, which is that we have just taken that over, but nevertheless, it is in our rules of order. So if we want to try that, I think it is healthy. I think it is healthy that we can have a civil discussion on a topic of importance to the people of St. Martin. What is their confidential? Why can't we have a debate? So, Madam Chair Lady, I love this. The government is like, hold on there, Parliament. I need to get in on the. But anyhow, this is I like this. I think that's the way it should be. So, but Madam Chair Lady, I was actually finishing up, but wanting to make the point, Madam Chair Lady, especially on the issue of electoral reform and the fact that the government wants the public's participation. Madam Chair Lady, how often do you not hear from persons that they are looking at Parliament and wondering, but they're not going to talk on the topic? How often have you not heard that? People want to hear a civil debate on an issue. And we might have different positions, we might have different stances, but I think that's healthy. And again, the more we could share information, even in a debate with the public on electoral reform, the better it is for them and for us. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. And to just add to what the members of this committee have stated, this meeting was, initial request of this meeting is to have a discussion. Why did we ask to have a discussion with government? It's because we've already established a way forward with electoral reform. We've already established internally how we're going to move forward with electoral reform, and then we found out a month ago or just before the recess that government is starting their trajectory. Now, it is so that we don't do double work, and that we wanted to inform the public and let them know that, hey, it may have been done in closed door, but this is what we're working on. We were about to send out the tour. We halted that initiative because we wanted to hear from government, what are you working on, so that it is not double work. Hence the reason for this discussion publicly. We are going to, I would like to now turn the floor over to the Prime Minister. I wanted to respond to MP Pontiflet's request, but Prime Minister, now you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members contributing thus far. I think really the timeline of when our letters crossed makes a big difference because, as I said before, and I echo the sentiments of Member of Parliament Duncan in the sense of that was our intention. In our request, let's have a technical meeting in terms of where are you in the process, This is what we're doing. How can we collaborate? And that is still the intention when you said, okay, no, let's have it open door. Again, we as government, you just said it, you've had closed door sessions on it, which is technical, working meetings, whatever the case is. And truth be told, in most parts of the kingdom, the committee meetings are held behind closed doors because they're working meetings. And then you come to the public for the public meetings. Of course, they can be public as well, but you have the opportunity to have discussion, you have differences of opinion, whatever the case is. In a closed door, maybe they wouldn't express everything and let it all out in public sessions, but at the end of the day, with this, a debate is for us to, it could be debate, you could call it discussion, it doesn't matter to me. And yes, this is a platform that the public can follow and learn as well. But what are we hearing? And here that the position paper isn't ready to be shared with government. It's an internal document. We have a survey that is still running, so it would be preliminary. We would close it when we start to have the public discussions in our trajectory. So while we have no problem sharing the preliminary results, for us, it should be a sharing meeting, and then we would be able to know where we're going. So whether that's public or private, at this point, it doesn't matter. It's about bringing awareness to the public, and I 100% agree with MP Westcott Williams that this public platform also brings the awareness to the public. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And so if you're willing to share your discussion paper, your points with us right now, we are willing to share the results that we have with you as well, and we can continue to have the public discussion on the way forward. But I think the proposal from MP Duncan sounded a little more, let's say, practical and efficient, but I'm open to whatever. This is Parliament's house, and again, for me, it's about collaborating. I wasn't aware, we weren't aware that you had your trajectory running, and we are, for me, in this together. At the end of the day, all the decisions taken would still have to come to Parliament, and had we been further along and heard you say something, this type of meeting would still be needed. So collaboration is key, and we're open for that.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I would like to suggest to the, yes? Oh, you wanted to take a break? Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes or 5. 5 minutes? Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Welcome back, members of parliament. We took the opportunity of the 5-minute break to caucus with the Prime Minister and the MPs, and we came to a conclusion, a decision moving forward. The decision is as follows, that Parliament will continue with the trajectory it has started, and that the government will find a way to start its three-prong approach to incorporate the trajectory of Parliament. What we're going to do when we close this meeting, we will set a date to have a technical meeting. We will have our own tracker, our own committee from Parliament and a committee from government, and we're going to work together to find a solution and move forward. But we will, as the Electoral Reform Committee, will continue with the path that we have already started. And with that, members of Parliament, I would like to wish you a pleasant afternoon further, and this meeting is closed. Meeting closed.